everyone, and thank you for joining us today. Today we're hosting the very first online testing workshop, and we have a very special topic for you: how to go above and beyond a new bug report. This means that today we will talk about how to make your bug report stand out, make it look more professional, and therefore increase the chances of getting approved. I'm Evgenia. With me today, two of the most experienced testers on team leaders on our platform, Estevao and Tony. Hi guys, thank you for joining. And they will share their expertise and their team leader perspective on the topic. If you have any questions, please leave them in Discord in channel general. We will devote some time at the end of the show to answering your questions as detailed as possible. So let's get started. Tony, over to you.
Hi guys, I am happy to show you how to get the perfect title in your bug reports. Okay, let's get started. We're gonna do a little recap. So actually, you might know all of it from the academy already, but I hope this helps still. The bug title should always summarize the problem and give a general idea of the bug. So I, as a team leader and also the customer, obviously, should not need to read all the report. They just need to read the title to get to know the problem. So to break it down in some basic points, write in your title, firstly, what happens, when and why does it happen, and where does it happen. This is like how you can break down your title. Then you have two optional things you can add. Limitations. So, for example, if it only occurs on Firefox or only on iPhone, please state so in your title. So start with it like Firefox or Firefox only, and then make clear that afterwards the title starts. Also, like when it only occurs on one device, like for example on iPhone 5, because maybe it's a screen size. State this in your title so everything is easy for us to understand. Also, if you have any conditions that need to be done before you can reproduce your bug, state this. So if it only happens if you tap twice, or only happens after you have already ordered something, please let us know in the title, but don't write a whole sentence. Just make it like a short mentioning. Okay, so if you want to upgrade to your title to like be even better, there's some recommendations. If it is common errors or common problems, just give us the idea what it is. So there's a lot of bugs with validation. So you can put validation in square brackets at front of your bug title. Same goes for broken links, broken images, or crash in apps. So just state this so we get a basic idea. There's some common mistakes in bug reports. So don't write your title as a suggestion. Write the real problem. So bad would be to write the product should be ordered after using the sorting method. The good title would say the products keep being unordered even when using a sorting method. So always state the problem. Also, when it goes about the language, we always want to have the bug report in the present and in an easy sentence. So the bad example is the pictures in the product list could not be clicked. Better is to state the pictures in the product list cannot be clicked. So it is easier to understand. Still, also, it means that it's still there. If you also write it in the past, couldn't be clicked, would mean maybe they can be clicked now. So why do we have the bug report? So let's get to the title step by step. How do I write or how do I structure my title? First, give us the hint. That was the square brackets I told about, the validation or the broken link, or for example, the limitation. Put both of it at the beginning of your title so we know what is going on before we even get to the real problem. And then just continue as we saw, like the main points. What does happen? Where does it happen? And when does it happen? So to give you an idea, we go through 2 bug titles step by step. So first I go with the hint validation. Then I add Firefox because my bug is only related to the Firefox. This is my limitation. Next, what happens? The validation message is not shown. This states my problem. So next structure point is where does it happen? At the registration form. And last but not least, when does my bug occur? When entering a wrong name. So as you see, if I follow these bits, I put together a really good bug title. To make it more clear, we can go through another example. This time we skip hint and limitation because this will not always occur. So we just directly start with the what happens. Shown products are not updated. Where does it happen? At the product list. And when does it happen? After removing the filter. So as you see, if I put together my bug title with this question, always having this structure in mind, the titles are short and still super descriptive. What we often see is when people try to give a better title, the title goes really, really long because you feel like you need to put all the information in. But what we want to have is a title that tells us everything that is important, but still is a bit abstract. So I have brought some examples of bad titles and tell you how to improve them. So most of them are too detailed. In the first example, we see that there's the whole email address stated in the bug. So the bad example here is the email address customerrelations@xxx.com goes beyond the right part at the screen on step 3 of the checkout process. If you want to make a better title of it, you can just say the email address goes beyond the screen at step 3 in the checkout. So it still shows every information that is needed. We don't need to know the exact email address because if you say at step 3, there's probably only this one email address and everybody knows which email it is. So we don't need this information here. In the next example, the bad part or the bad long title is when the user applies the black filter, the list shows 5 products, then the user pressed the clear all button, the apply button is disabled, and the product list still displays 5 products of the black filter. This is a really long title. So obviously it was tried to put like all the information that's needed into this bug. But what would be better is to abstract it a little bit. So also state the problem more clear. Clearing the filter does not force the product list to reload. The filtered list is still shown. This states exactly what's written above, just way shorter. We don't need to know that the apply button is disabled at the moment. We don't need to know which button exactly was pressed at this moment. We just want to know that this clearing is not working. In the next example, it is a quite short title. It says it always shows you haven't viewed anything yet and recently viewed after relogging in. So to make it even shorter and even easier to understand, you can just say no product shown at recently viewed after relogging in. Because basically that is the problem. Yes, the problem also is that you show the message instead of products, but here you just describe like something that is happening, but not the real problem. The real problem is that you don't see the products and not that you see an error message. So if you go like this with a good example, you try to abstract the problem more instead of just stating the error message. And last but not least, one more example of 2 detailed bug reports. Display message accept JavaScript inscription has failed. Klarna is not available. When user use credit card number 444 and so on. So here we have 2 good options where you can go with. Either you can go with error shown when trying to purchase with credit card, or error is shown when specific credit card is used. Actually, which one of this would be correct depends on the real problem. When I only read the bad example, I'm not sure which of it is the problem. And this is why I gave you 2 good examples on how you do it. So it is shorter. We don't need the exact error message at this point, and we don't need to know the exact credit card number. And if it is a specific credit card number or a specific error message or a specific character you need to use, you can write it down if it's short. So you can give, for example, error is shown when specific character, and then make braces like dot is used. So this is enough information. But if it's like a long information you need to use, don't put it in the title. We have the actual result and the steps to quote all the necessary input. So just go with the title short. And if it's specific, just state that it is specific, as in the last example, error is shown when specific credit card is used. If you stick to this, you're really good with the title, and you can continue with upgrading your steps.
So first, hello everyone. I hope you're all having a great day. First steps, the first thing you have to keep in mind is to use an imperative language. By using imperative language, we mean using a sequence of commands to determine how you reach the bug. So try not to say, I clicked, or you should click. Avoid using pronouns. Keep the report impersonal. So it's more like a scientific writing that you are making. It makes the report more objective and avoid unnecessary information. So you should be giving commands and not narrating what you did. For example, instead of writing, I clicked on the button, or you should click on the button, just write, click on the add cart button. Go to the product detail page. Enter the credit card number. It's clear what the action you're performing, and it makes the report more condensed. Another aspect of the steps is to make them as straightforward as possible and to only write down the relevant information. So there's no need to write, for example, click on the add to cart button and observe that the product was added to cart. Then click the cart icon and notice you are redirected to the cart section. This is just unnecessary information that makes the report longer and might make it a little bit boring to read because you are not stating what the issue really is. So click on the X button and observe, then click on that is unnecessary information. Just write, click on X button, then click on Y button. You can use, for example, a dash and a greater than sign to indicate the order you are going to perform each step. And also try to keep each step with only 2 or 3 actions. If you only enter 1 action per step, you're going to have like a 20-step report. Or if you enter too many actions in a single step, you have 1 or 2 steps that are like 2 or 3 lines long. So I think 2 or 3 actions per step is good enough. And so, for example, let's say you are on an e-commerce site and you are going to look for jeans and pants. There is no need to write down like step 2, hover over women. Step 3, click on jeans. Step 4, click on pants. This can all be condensed in a single step, like hover over women, click on jeans, click on pants. Just as straightforward as that. And also, there is no need to copy and paste the URL for each step. We have a rule to only have the access URL on the first step, and unless the customer asks otherwise, the URL should be present only in the first step. Then, to make your report more appealing, to look more professional, you can use markup language. We're going to talk about this later in the presentation. Or you can use quotation marks to highlight the important information. For example, the button you clicked, an error message that is displayed, a broken link. So this makes the report easier and more pleasable to the eye. Also, try to use professional credentials on every test. Don't just smash your hands on your keyboards to enter your name or your password or an email, because the customer might need that credential later to reproduce the bug. And also, as Tony mentioned before, try to have your preconditions cleared and stated on your steps. So if you need to be logged in, write that beforehand. If you have to place an order to reproduce the bugs, write that beforehand. And if possible, use markup language or quotation marks to highlight that important information. So for the results, Tony will take over again.
Okay, guys, let's get to the results. The results are the most important field on the report, or the most important fields, actually. There's the two fields. So, the short recap. The expected result should always describe what you expect to happen and what you, after you perform the last step. And the actual result is where you explicitly say what really happens. In the actual result, you write down the bug. So keep this in mind when we go further on how to upgrade your results. To make your results look more professional, write in full sentences. If you have a lot of information in the actual result, give us full sentences, because it would just easier to read and to understand. And make short sentences. Don't make like super complicated sentences with over 3 or 4 lines. Keep it quiet and simple, but state what you want to say. And same as in the steps, use quotation marks for error messages, for product names, or for the text on the button. So if you talk about the add to basket button, you can put the add to basket before the button into quotation marks. So it's easier for us and the customer to read. Also make sure that your actual result and your expected result should differ. You should not only write, this does not work, I expect it to work. Please make sure that you explain what is not working. You should explain what is happening and not only state what is not happening. So don't write should or could. As a good example, you can write in the expected result, the add to basket button adds products to the basket. And don't write the add to basket button should add products to the basket. Just stick to what it does or what you expect it to do, what you expect, but you don't need to write it should or it could. And in the actual result, you write down what is happening. So in this case, if the add to basket button is clicked, nothing happens. But don't leave it like this. Continue in writing, there's an error message and the product will not be added to the basket. If you explain in the second sentence, it is totally fine to write nothing happens or doesn't work, but make sure you explain what does not work and make sure you explain why nothing has happened or what happens instead. So also in the results, you have a lot of information to give to us. So leave us some hints. When you have an idea why a bug occurs, give us and the customer a hint why it happens. So for example, if you notice that the bug happens more often or only happens after the 0 results in the search, state this. Don't write in your steps, search for test, and then the result of it is 0 results, and then continue. But if you notice that it is related to the 0 results, tell us. Also, if you can't reproduce a bug every time, it's not a problem, but let us know how high the reproduction rate is. So if you can reproduce the problem in 3 out of 5 times, just write down reproduction 3 from 5. If it's like 4 from 5, it's fine, or it's like 1 from 3, just let us know how often you can reproduce it if you do it. Also, make sure you give us all the needed information. So if there's a problem with something where you've been logged in, give us the login data. So maybe the problem is only related to your account, so it is easier to understand the problem. Also, often customers have internal databases where they can look up what happens. Maybe it's like not easy to reproduce a bug, but if you provide the data you used in the login, it's easier for them to find why the bug might be occurred. Also, if you write down the login data, even if you can maybe see it in the video, it's easier to copy and paste it somewhere to use it. Especially for visual bugs, especially on small devices, give us the screen size. When you see like something is running out of the window or like some image is not shown totally, just give us your screen size. There's websites where you can just open in your browser saying, what is my screen size? And then we see your actual screen size. If you know your screen size, you can also just state it in the actual result without even showing it in your video. And last but not least, repeat limitations and conditions. We said we want to have the limitations and conditions also in the title. Sometimes it might be really long or really hard to explain the condition or the limitation. So also make sure you explain your condition really well and just repeat the limitation. So if you state it only occurs on Firefox, on Chrome, everything is fine, we are more than happy about this in the actual result. So if you follow all of this, you might end up with a longer report than you're used to it. So it is a really, really good idea to get some formatting into your report so it even looks more professional.
So our platform supports Markdown as a markup language, and it makes the report look really good when you are able to highlight the important information. So I'm going to try to explain some of the resources you could use. And the first one is to use bold. Bold is used by adding double asterisk before and after a word or a sentence. And I have an example here on the tester dashboard where you can see on the left how you would write the report using the bold, and on the left, how you would write, on the right, how it would look after you submit your report. So try to use bold for buttons, links, error message, something you want to highlight and is important, or it makes it easier to find the information you are trying to write down. The same thing goes for italic. Italic, you use it by either placing a single asterisk before or after the word, or an underline after and before the word. So on the left, you can see both examples, and on the right, how they look after you submit the report. In my personal opinion, I think that italic looks better when you have an error message or a longer sentence to highlight, and bold is better for buttons or shorter sentences. Then we have the horizontal rule. This is especially useful when a customer asks for additional information, for example, your location, your browser version, So you can use the horizontal rule to separate your report from the requested information. So you write a sentence like, for example, your actual result. You use the horizontal rule, and below the rule, you add your browser version, for example. And you can use either 3 dashes, 3 asterisks, or 3 underline, as I show on the example provided. Last, one thing that I think is very good for usability suggestions that have multiple questions, because if you just copy and paste the questions and answer it in plain text, it becomes just a wall of text that is really hard to find where a question starts, where it ends. So you can use headlines with hashtags. The more hashtags you use, the smaller the headline size will be. So I wrote down an example with 1, 2, 3, and 4 hashtags, and you can see the effect it has on your report on the right side. So I would say if you can use headlines along with bold for questions, it would make your report look outstanding. And I have provided the link on the Academy article that you can check more information about the Markdown language. And another useful tip that is good for spell checking is either you use a Chrome extension or you copy and paste the text on a Word document, because even though it's not perfect, it helps a lot with small mistakes, typos. So there are a couple of tools you can use for that. I have also an example from a report that I consider to be really well formatted. The tester Charlie, which I also all the time I see he using Markdown, and I also praise him for doing that. You can see he uses bold and italic on important information. You can easily find the links and button that he's clicking, the email he is using. So this would be a great example on how a good formatted report looks like. Then we have a couple of common mistakes that we would like to highlight so you can avoid it.
We can start with really easy ones. So basically it is about the wording. On mobile, if you're testing apps, use tapping. Don't say clicking. And it is tapping with a P and not with a B. The tab with a B is the ones in your browser when you have multiple tabs open. And the tab with the finger is with a P. Also, there's a big difference between the and a in the English language. So you use the when it is a specific thing. So the product 1, 2, 3 cannot be added to the basket. This is one specific product which cannot be added. So if you write a product cannot be added to the basket, it is not clear at the first sight if it is you mean one product or if it's all the products. So if it is about one specific thing, use the. If it is not necessarily specific, use a. And you write a or an. An is used when there's a vocal following up. So if it is an A or an E, an O, and U. So if these follow up, you can use an instead of a. So an 404 error is shown when clicking any link in the footer. So here you use an because it is not this one specific error. It is a 404 error, but you don't know why exactly it is occurring or whatever. So just use an 404 error because it is 1 out of a million 404 errors. Another common mistake is the time. So for the most important words, it shows or it is shown, not showed, or it is displayed. You can use this one. So shows or is shown, not use the past sentence. Also, it is truncated or it is cut off. When you can't see the image in a whole, it is truncated or cut off. Don't write running out of the screen.
A common mistake that I also see a lot is mixing past and present tenses in the same report. So for example, app is crashed or error is occurred. So you're stating that something is happening or happened. So you either say app crashes after something happened, or an app crashes after an app has crashed after you perform some steps. Because if you say is crashed, your is in the present tense. Crashed is in the past sentence. So it doesn't make much sense. So this is how you should write in the correct form. Also, I see a lot testers writing user can't be able to, where it should be user is not able to, because can't be able is semantically incorrect and it doesn't make much sense as well. And for the last thing, I would say the golden rule is to always read the test description, because even though we gave you a lot of tips on how to write your reports, there are customers that have specific information or a specific bug title that they want to write. For example, they want a tag test.io before the title. They want you to add your browser, in the actual result, they might require your credentials, your location. So always read the test instructions. They might change, even though you have taken that test like 100 times. It might change. So you have 1 hour before you are invited until the test start. You have plenty of time to read everything and to avoid bugs being rejected because they are out of scope, clearly stated in the instruction, and you missed it. So that would be it.
Okay, thank you, Antonia and Estevao. It was really, really nice. I really enjoyed it and I really learned a lot from you. Thank you very much for doing it and sharing so much knowledge from your team leader perspective. So I can see that we have a few questions in Discord. And first of all, is there any limitation regarding maximum how many steps a tester can use in the bug report? The limitation on the number of steps.
There is no limitation of the number of steps because there are so many possibilities for a bug to happen. The only thing is to combine 2 or 3 actions, like I explained before, in each step. Not just write each action on a single step, because that will make the report huge, like 20, 30 lines, 30 steps. And try to be as straightforward as you can. There is no limit, but you shouldn't also just write anything that comes to mind. Write the necessary information.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you. And we have one more question. Are there any extra tools that you would like to recommend to enhance your bug report? Any tools that could help you? For example, spell check, anything else that comes to your head?
Well, there are some extensions that you can use for spell check, or like I mentioned, you can paste the text on a Word document. But I would avoid using Google Translate because it messes up a lot of sentences. And I don't think there's any tool right now.
What I use quite often is a tool called Ditto. It is spelled DITTO, which gives you an endless copy and paste possibility. So it is like an endless clipboard on your Windows. So if you need to rewrite the first 3 steps for 3 bug reports, you can just get them out of your clipboard. And so this helps a lot. So you don't need to manually copy and paste it. You can do it over your keyboard. And for translator, if you need one, there's one which is really good. It's an artificial intelligence. It's called Deepl.com. It's like DEEPL.com, which is like a really, really good translator. So if you need a translator, better use those ones instead of Google Translate.
Okay, thank you very much for the answer. We have one more question from Chandra. If size of a screencast file exceeds 25 megabytes, can the video be linked in the Google Drive?
I would say no. It's better to use a video to cut the video like in half and upload 2 videos and explain to the team leader what happened, because it's not very professional to have a link to an outside video from our platform. It's better to have all the information there, because the customer might later export a bug or something like that, and they will have the link in that export.
Okay, thank you. And one more question. Why is the sound not allowed in the video attachment?
Can you repeat it?
Why is the sound not allowed in the video attachment? Why should the sounds be turned off?
It is just more professional, because when the customer watches the video, they probably do it in the office. So maybe they don't have turned off their sound. So it would be weird if you watch the bug report and then you hear a TV in the back, or a kid yelling, or a cat. So it is just more professional to don't have the sound if you don't need the sound. Because sometimes you need the sound to show the bug report, then obviously you can turn it on. But in every other case, please just don't do it, because it's more professional when the sound is off.
Okay, thank you very much, guys, for joining us today and sharing so much knowledge and your perspective on the topic. It was really, really interesting. And thank you everyone who joined us as well. If you have any feedback, please leave it in Discord or write me via support, or if you have any suggestions for future topics for future workshops. We will have more workshops in the next year, 2020, and I hope to see you then. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.